Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Encryptid Connections. I am your host, Kyle. Man, it feels like it's been a while, guys. Happy to be back, though. Very happy to be back. Life happens, things happen. It's one of those things where you want to be doing this stuff as much as you can, and things get in the way that interrupt it, and all I can do is what I can do. I hope you guys understand that. If I could be here 5 days a week, I probably would. I thoroughly enjoy every chance I get to spend with the wonderful folks who support this channel and who are passionate about this topic and these topics that we discuss. But just life has a way of intervening in things, and you can't control that stuff. So I do what I can. I am trying to get back on a regular schedule, at least one show a week. I'm going to start going back up to the property again, probably this weekend. If not this weekend, then next week I will. And then so we'll have that stuff too. I still have audio that I have not gone through, guys. Like I have probably, I don't know, between 18 and 22 hours of audio that I still have to go through from the last couple times that I picked up the SD card from the recorder. And it's just been sitting. I just haven't had the time. A lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes. Maybe we'll talk about that in another show. But tonight, we are not going to talk about that. I just wanted to give you a little brief, explanation for why things have been kind of inconsistent. Let me say first, hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I love you all. You know that. Sonia, hello. All the way. Sonia, by the way, I hope you're being safe. I heard there's a volcano going on over there. This is crazy. The world just seems to be upside down. Every time you turn around, there's some kind of crazy, natural disaster or something going on. So Sonia's all the way in Iceland. I hope you're safe. You don't need to go any closer. Watch it on TV. That's good enough. Joe and Jesse with Hellbent. I'm not sure if it's both of you guys, but they said they're driving, won't be in the chat for a while, but listening. Thank you guys. I love you both. You're amazing. Mike Stone, thank you so much for being here, brother. My brother Fresh, as always. Wonderful folks. Carson, Colette, Hope, Sharon. Thank you guys for being here. I love you all. We are here. They just confirmed Joe and Jesse are here. Right on. Anyway, let's get into it. Tonight, guys, really excited for this guest. I watched him recently on our friend Lauren Smith's show, Nightcallers Radio. After that, I went and started watching other stuff with him that I could find. Joe and Jesse both co-signed that, he was somebody that we should definitely have on the show. And so I said, I got to get a hold of him. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to our guest tonight, Mike Ann from Tactical Bigfoot and Where's My Sage podcast. How you doing tonight, Mike?
What's going on, brother? I appreciate you inviting me in and your guests being here and your chat that's following us, and Joe and Jesse, of course, for getting me that thumbs up. So
yeah, they're wonderful folks, man.
yes,
like I said, if they give a cosign, that's all I need to hear, man. So I like to start like everybody else. For people who don't know you, because I didn't know you prior to a couple weeks ago when I saw you on Lauren's show. Like I said, it's impossible to know everybody. And I hope when I tell people that, I hope nobody takes offense to it, because there's just so many people out there doing this now. Whereas, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it was like kind of more hush hush. Yep. People didn't talk openly about it. So there might be people here who still don't know who you are. I'm glad that I know who you are now. But for those who don't, tell us who you are and how did you get your start in this field?
Well, so not surprising that you didn't know who I was. I have managed to I kept myself underneath the radar till just about the middle of COVID. And during that time, I spent a little time with Seth Breedlove and the crew there on the trail of Bigfoot, the journey. And
wonderful people.
Yes. And Seth put my name out there front and center, and I'm like, okay, guess I got to come out now. And on that note, and it's kind of ironic that we'll go there and then we'll really get into how I got into this mess, because Joe messaged me first thing today, as soon as I got out of work. And as I'm checking my Instagram, he's like, congratulations. I'm like, congratulations on what? Well, Small Town Monsters has Monster Fest, and I actually will be a guest, and I'll be doing some presentations at their Monster Fest next June, the last week in June. So you guys are the first ones outside of Instagram and my Facebook to know about that. So
that's amazing.
I found out today as I got home. I knew the announcement was there. I knew it was going out. I just didn't know when. So today was the first public announcement that we'll be doing a class and doing a little speaking on that.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome,
thanks.
Dude.
So I have a background in criminal justice and archaeology. And because of my career, I've been hanging out in the law enforcement field for over 20 years. I kind of really hid in the background on things. So my health's been on and off over the years. A couple years back, I was out sick and I was messing around on the old Google, and we had a coworker that joked that he was related to Bigfoot. And so, being bored, joking, sitting around a computer, I start Googling Bigfoot sightings and find a sighting not 5 miles down the road from me in the local newspaper. And I'm like, okay, here, joke's on now. He's been bragging about being related forever. I do, a group text message to a bunch of guys I know that work in different fields. And a couple of guys came back and said, hey, we got some coworkers looking for these things. And a buddy of mine that worked for an environmental agency said, hey, our agency releases one Bigfoot and one mountain lion, one Bigfoot with one wolf. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Well, the mountain lion thing kind of dung me back to a couple years before, where I was talking to another representative of this agency, and they mentioned that, hey, it's Christy London.
Hey, Christy.
She is my co-host on Where's My Sage,
yes,
the podcast we do. So it's awesome. She got in to join us quick. But this gentleman, I was asking him about mountain lions in New York City because I had a really big interest on big cats. As a kid, I volunteered at the local zoo. So I had the primate house and the big cats in the small zoo I volunteered at on either side of me. So I was always, fascinated by the large primates and big cats. And
we've got a lot in common, Mike. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, it's okay.
I am a huge, I'm so fascinated by big cats. They're my favorite animal in the world. Like, I haven't had the opportunity to work with them, but that was like my dream job.
Yeah. That's kind of where I went, and I've switched careers so many times over the years. I mean, I've always kept one, but I've always had a little side thing, as you'll see as we go along with this craziness. but as I talked to him, he's like, I don't believe the big cat thing. Yes, there was the one that we had go through. Yeah, it's a good one. But he said when he was working the southern part of New York State, Western New York State, he had seen a lot of things that they couldn't explain, and a lot of them kind of referenced the topic of Bigfoot. But like I said, it's in the back of my head. It comes forward when I see this message, so I get on and start searching because now I'm laid up, so I'm watching YouTube and Instagram and Prime, and I come across Seth's Small Town Monsters, Beast of Whitehall, which is, law enforcement based sightings, which really got me interested. I love the Adirondacks. And at the same time, I came across a channel out of Western New York, Ryan Reading, so Western New York Bigfoot. And I saw he was down in Chautauqua County. That's where this gentleman said he was working some of the times. Then I found a Bigfoot festival down there. And I ended up going down to the Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Festival. And while I was down there, I got to meet Ryan. He was down there, and we kind of talked and hit it off. And he introduced me to Steve Culls, the Squatch Detective. Steve's been featured on so many different shows. He's helped, he's been on Monster Quest. He's helped out with Finding Bigfoot. He's National Geographic stuff, and he's a private investigator. Well, a couple hours after I talked to Steve, he sends me a Facebook message, join his group, and I went out and we went on our first investigation up in the Adirondacks. Nothing happened. And I said, okay, this is what I want to see. Because I figured if I went out, I happened to be up there for a conference. If I saw Bigfoot my first night out, I'm just walking away. If I heard something, nothing happened, which generally happens when you're out doing this. Nothing happens. It's a great time with friends in the woods. Steve then introduced me to a bunch of other folks, the folks at Nesra, who have been around forever. Again, those guys, the original core group, were the New York folks that were featured in some of the original Monster Quest stuff. And then I got to introduce some folks down in the Pennsylvania area, Eric Altman and his crew, and it's been a wild, crazy ride since. I have not seen one myself, but I've talked to a lot of folks, a lot of credible witnesses. Yeah, we took Christy out. She's a psychic medium, and we took her out for her first Bigfoot investigation, and we kind of used her as bait that night. Kind of left her down the trail and went out to check the area. So she's still with us. She makes it through, but she then drags me off to haunted houses to do investigations like we did last weekend.
So that's maybe payback.
Yeah, it's payback. So I've talked to military folks. I've talked to law enforcement folks. I've got a couple of folks that go with me that are biologists. One of them did have a encounter in South America with a military unit. I've talked to some of his folks that were with him, that would surround their careers, their families, the whole bit, what they saw. And it's been kind of interesting, just this path. And again, having that background of going to school for archaeology and anthropology and criminal justice, talking to people and hearing their stories and the traditional stuff that's out there, it really keeps me going on what we can do. And things are really spread out in the folks I work with. So I'm an independent, but I work alongside of some really great folks, including some of the folks from Project Zoo Book. I've got a project going with Doug Hychek. We're kind of, I bounce some ideas off him once in a while from the Monster Quest series. And he's also got the new Legend Meet Science 2 coming out with Meldrum. So we're working on some things. As you saw, we're kind of, I try to get out there. It's a learning experience. It's also a great time to teach kids and folks about nature and what's out there. And occasionally you may find something that you're going to, document and put there. It's just awesome, so away we go. So it
is. It's such it's one of those things where this is not like something that you just kind of like. This is something that you really have to have a passion for, right? You really have to enjoy the mystery, the trekking through the woods, all that stuff. This is not something I think that most people just go, yeah, it's okay. And, that's just not what this field and this subject matter is. People who are into this are into this.
Yeah.
They love it.
And I wouldn't say for me, it's self-consuming
No,
or all-consuming,
no.
but when I got in this and I started going around, so I was kind of in the background with Steve, and he would go out and do events. Well, I made tactical blades, so I was out doing knife shows. So I was talking to a lot of survivalists. I got a lot of friends that do Naked and Afraid, and hearing about their stories. So that's kind of where TBR came from. But the skills that I use in the woods, I also do search and recovery stuff. The equipment that we use, it keeps my skills up to date. And that's a big thing. And I spend more time on a thermal camera. Well, it's got than most of my coworkers do. I've probably got at least 3 hours a week on that particular thermal. There's 2 or 3 others that are floating around, looking. So if we're out doing a search and rescue and we've got thermal drones up, yeah, I can, yep, that's a deer. That's something else, and what you can hear and what you can see. Not, like I said, not everything that goes bumping at night is Bigfoot.
Right. Absolutely. And it's important for people to understand that too. One of the things that happens often, I think, is these misinterpretations of sounds that people hear. You get often, right? So, like you talked about this with Lauren, people hear owls often, and they think it's a Bigfoot, or it's because it sounds monkey-like, or it's some of the things that we've been presented with in the past that have been purported Bigfoot audio. Are not. They're other animals that somebody has said, oh, this is a Bigfoot, because they're just misinformed, or they're not educated on all these things that are out there, because there's a lot out there, and it's more likely that when you're in the woods, you're going to hear normal animal noises than you are going to come across a Sasquatch. I mean, this is just the way this works. But real quick, Joe said this to me the other day. He said, Mike's probably the most innovative researcher out there. Let's talk about that. So what is it that you're doing, that you think you can do, or we can do as a community, to kind of to push the envelope, to start with new, bring new techniques forward, or to incorporate techniques that are already existing into this field?
All right, you asked for it. So I've got a couple different projects going. Like I said, we're working on the UV hair collection project. That's something, after talking to Doug, when I got ready to film my show, trying to find the best light to light my partner up. So, you start out with, it's probably not going to work because I got my green screen on, but, we'll start out with some green light. So hence my face is gone, and you go to the blues, and the reds, and you just keep changing and trying those out. Well, I finally got to UV when I was filming. So I reached out to Doug and I said, hey, have you ever filmed with UV light? So our good old UV light, which will actually pop on, which you can see pretty good, with any of the samples. Because what I noticed is that UV light will shine one particular color, but when you run it through a digital camera or a digital microscope, some of those filters in there will kind of sort out the UV light. So he came back and said, yeah, I got some samples, and they had come back, and they got a really interesting. There's no medulla in them, and you can see that purple light kind of going through the middle. So I put out, and it kind of went out to the internet faster than I wanted to. Somebody else kind of leaked the study before we got controlled samples. And that was my big thing, was getting a hold of controlled animal samples. So we knew what cow looked like, what pig looked like, whatever, and compared them to these unknown samples. So, if we take, I got them in, they're down in the bottom drawer here. This I happen to know. We're going to grab something. We use. Oh, well, we'll get to that in a second too. I've got a whole bunch of slides in here. Sorry, I had moved everything around. We were away for the weekend.
It's okay.
Doing a paranormal investigation because occasionally we do that with other groups. But I've got slides of bear, raccoon, skunk, a whole bit, and we'll put them underneath a digital microscope. Unplug this one. So we'll go ahead and we'll put the digital microscope out. We'll put a UV light on and we'll see what we get. See if we get that similar light characteristic. So I've asked folks to go ahead and how we're going to document those things. So there's the UV light hair collection project. It used to be the Sasquatch pink hair thing, but try to get scientists, even though you got scientists helping you out, they don't know. Well, they hear Bigfoot or Sasquatch, they're still running away. The point was not to say this is Bigfoot or that's Bigfoot. It's is there an anomaly in this hair structure? And now we've got somebody like Darby Olcott at North Carolina State University doing a DNA study on unknown hair samples. It's free, folks. And Kyle, I'll send you the information later. But if you got a hair sample and you think you've got it, you've got sound, you've got smell, you got pictures, all in an area that you think is Bigfoot, and he's got a whole checkoff list. We have a major university behind the study that you can send your samples off to. So like last Wednesday night, that's why I couldn't go last Wednesday. I was up at a gentleman's house. He had 2 bins of hair. Well, we sat down, pulled the microscope out, and nope. This you can see. If we compare it, this is what it looks like. So not everything is there. And then, like I said, Doug has got some stuff out there on some hair samples we're doing. So that's one thing. I use different color lights when I go out, when I'm looking at the ground, when I look at things. If you're running around at night, you can find different insects. You can find different foliage that's out there. Different mosses are all going to light up differently under UV light. And there's a lot of different animals, and get to know all your animals in your area, because some things will look at things that UV light. That whole, the urine thing with the dog with the UV light. You got caribou doing, similar, following that UV light. There's more to it. So that's one project we're working on.
That's amazing. That's really amazing that there's a university now that's going to be doing this. Like that's huge.
Darby Olcott at NC. Another innovative thing. This is not a full one, but this is cheap tablecloth plastic. Cut it into strips, tie it up behind you. If you've got an area you think you got a nest or you've got some major hair, the static electricity from that tablecloth, the hair will stick to it. Then when you get done, it will. Just like, when you pull your plastic or rub the balloon, you get that static. But go to your local, corner store. I won't say that little box store that's on every corner and every 5 foot across the country. But that cheap dollar tablecloth, cut that up. The static electricity on there can pull right through. And then bag it up in a paper bag. Because now you can start collecting your hair samples. And that's the whole thing about documenting. I got to turn my lights off here for a minute. Let me kill my green screen for a minute.
Shade Viking, thank you so much for the donation, man. I really appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Get rid of green screen for a minute. Because, of course, I do everything in green and yellow. But let me close that out. Documenting where you're getting your evidence is so important. That's where we got to go. And I help folks. That's my big thing, is how do we set those things up, even from small little envelopes of where we're going. Those are plastic ones, but I got little ones in there. Go back, bring my green screen. Actually, we'll hold off on the green screen for a second. Another thing we're doing. You're in Connecticut. I'm in Western New York. You have a sighting. You want to tell me about your sighting. You saw a creature in a particular color. It's brown. It's gray. What's brown or what's gray to me is one color compared to you. So what I'm doing, I'm sending you to your local hardware store. Get me a paint sample.
Brilliant.
And I know this particular brand. I went to X, Y, and Z, box store, or I picked up X, Y, and Z paint sample. Get the big ones because they're nice. Now you got a whole bunch of them in there. or you can do the little ones. You know, like I said, this is what we're doing. This is how I want to know. When I talk to a witness now, I want to know what colors you're looking at so I can take a look. Because when somebody says it's gray, well, it was gray, black, and white. Well, gray, black, and white. Now I can have an idea of what gray, black, and white. We can take it to somebody like Scott from the Bigfoot Mapping Project, dump that info into where the sightings are in the area. Gives him more data. Now there's another way of doing things. So I've got a Joe, Jesse, and myself have a great friend, Matt Larson from Central Florida Bigfoot, who is a photojournalist and artist by background. I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Well, he goes to his wife's another artist and says, well, why aren't you using Pantones? Pantones. I've heard Pantones, but it's not coming. It's the universal color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody around the world can go ahead and share those. However, these kits are ridiculously expensive. You can print them as well. So I printed them off as well so we can share them. But the problem with that, and looking at sometimes, if your computer or your printer's settings are different, they'll bounce out. You can also get those great things. Amazon, $14 if you're out doing a show or talking to somebody. You can get them in cloth and carry this in your bag and make notations what you see in the woods. So go back to my green screen here. So that's one thing, is how we collect things, how we have, you know, where we go, where we're going to grab stuff from is different. You know, taking cheap things like sterilized tweezers with you. So we've got the color schemes, flags, popsicle sticks. So you're hanging out with the kids, you're taking the woods, you take a popsicle stick, you turn around, get your little tiny duct tape. It's bright. It's a 2-part thing. This is going to mark your evidence. So when you find something, your tree, I am not a tree structure guy, but there are some things that I may want to look at in nature, or I might find a print or might find some hair. But if I see a structure that may show some breaks, I may want to look at that for hair. So I will flag them out. And I may do little flags like this, or Emily from the forest floor made these cute ones are about this big, you know.
No, she's awesome, isn't she? She's yeah. So awesome.
So after an interview with Emily, she said, oh, I got to do the flag. So she calls me and says, hey, can I use your idea? Yeah, go ahead. This is easy because this I can use as a trail marker and I can make them on the way or in the woods. Where we go next from that? Now we've put those things in. Get yourself some cheap paracord, put a ring on the end. You've now found your evidence. So this goes to my search and rescue thing, and I'm giving you the quick blurb on this. I do a measured piece of rope, and I do circle searches. When I find another thing, I drop a little thing. So this whole thing for us in the Northeast, if you look at what I've got behind me, this is a general area we've got up here. You've got some rock, you got some stone. You're going to go back and forth. It disappeared. It went into the zone. Okay. Did you go straight? Did you go at an angle? How did you pick your angle of how you're attacking? This way I can do a circle search from an area. I know I'm going to cover a set distance of 6, 10, or 18 feet, depending on what rope I'm carrying with me. Or the... This happened with Lauren, too. So
it's cloaking. It's cloaking.
It is cloaking. A good old cloth tape measure.
Yep.
And I'll actually grommet rings on the back of those setups. You're going to have me change all my background screens on me. This is another important location here behind me. But having these skills, having a good tape measure with you when you're out there is so important. Now, the reason I use cloth and I use the paracord, it's cordage. You trip, you fall, you need to tie something down. Good luck, Christy. I know you got to work. So
thank you for coming, Christy. I appreciate it.
Having the ability to tie something up is important. So cordage is always important. And again, you can use it to wherever you're going. But having a known setup. Everybody wants to go in the woods, you know, throw their boot next to something. Well, two things happen. You throw your boot down, you're compressing the soil, you're changing the demographic of your, or, the dimensions of your shoe. I am a big proponent of 3D scanning. I have a couple apps on my phone. Current one I'm running right now is Polycam. Yes. And here's an interesting thing. There's some new plastic shields that are out there now that you can buy. I saw them at the last hunting show, and they're a couple on the internet. They're good close. You can't really move them around, but yeah, they do some really interesting refraction of light.
Yeah.
But the 3D scanning apps, so important. Everybody takes one photo. Again, coming from my background, there's my boy, Matt's in there from Central Florida Bigfoot. He popped in over on my channel.
Hey, Matt.
So we'll get to him in a minute. The 3D scanning in the 3D scanning app, the first place we actually put it out was on Matt's channel. He's down in Florida, showing you how to do a print. But it's photopictometry, where you're actually taking at least 20 photos. So you're getting depth and everything. And then if you got somebody a 3D scanner or a 3D printer, you can print that as long as you have a good printer. So the days of carrying the 50 pounds of hydrocal or dentistone in your backpack, they're still there. It's still very important. But if you're like me and just run a small, I run a small sling bag.
Yeah.
It's probably no camo on it as well. But I run a small sling bag. I got my water, and I'm running the tools that I need to get through. I have a small evidence collection kit and my tape and my knife and a Kestrel drop, which Joe and Jesse, you've probably seen them run. It's another data collection point. It's awesome. It's just great. And then you can go back and you can look at all those different ways. Using that app, I found some prints. I thought I had big cat prints. When we scan it, you can see the toe that wasn't there. The toenails weren't there. It's a big dog.
Right.
So trying to run all those apps. Like we said, the Merlin Bird app, huge. There's bird.net. And again, those are sound listening capabilities. So you're in the words and you hear those different bird sounds or weird sounds. You're like, what is that? Is it an owl? Is it, a heron or a crane of some sort? It's a wonderful thing. Plus, you can look visually at that kind of stuff. They definitely need those.
Yeah.
So, rocking that stuff out is so important. Having some of those other things, I see, Bigfoot Todd. I know Todd's, been out there kind of trying them out. And again, depending on your phone, I'm not going to say use this app or that app because every phone is different. The iPhones have some LiDAR that'll give you some extra, definition. Just know your devices before you out there. So, that's a little bit where I'm going. I run a lot of thermal. And if I see something that's, in the audio aspects where I can't identify, it's not popping on bird.net. I use iHunt Calls, another app that gives me like coyote sounds and bear and bison and elk. If they're those, and I've looked at those and listened to them with like Audacity and I can't figure them out, they're going out to the OP and I'm sending them out to, Chris Spencer or David Ellis at the Olympic Project. Hey guys, can you take a look at those kind of things? So, I got about 6 other projects floating around. I've got some new scent stuff we're working on. But that's where I'm at. Is try to open your mind and listen to everybody because everybody has something to offer. From the garbage man that's going down the road, newspaper guy at 4:00 in the morning that's out working, he's going to see a neighborhood different than a doctor or an artist. It's always so important to look at all those different aspects of things.
Yeah, it's amazing. These techniques are amazing, though. Some of it's so like. Don't take this the wrong way. Some of them are so simple but also so innovative, right? Things that you wouldn't think to do. Most people may not think to do. That paint sample is, that's amazing to really get an idea of, like you said, my gray and your gray could be completely different.
Right. And then if somebody says, hey, I saw, my beard's shaved off, but it's the same as yours. Like my hair, I keep it short. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I saw this, we'll take the samples of your beard. We've got some, this shade or that shade. We can compare them and have somebody give me that. Now, does that particular hair sample, if I were to go and look at a tree behind me, are those the colors that match that tree? Where are you setting up? So this is a site in Western New York. We found a decent sized print down there. And again, there's a lot of days that I go, this can't happen. It's not there. But then I talk to witnesses like yourself or a couple other folks that I know that have been there and been close and bill upright, and there. And I've seen the reaction and say, okay, I need to keep going. I need to find out for myself and I need to find out for those folks. What is it? What are they seeing in the woods? And like I said, it's awesome that, like I said, we got Darby doing the DNA stuff. We've now got Matt with Central Florida Bigfoot. He's now doing his videos when he puts everything into Adobe, to run his videos. There's a button on there that you can pull it as a negative. So now you've walked down your path, and what are your camera filters? And always look at your camera. If you're using a digital camera, and something I found out with one of the cameras I have, some of them you can click a setting and not even realize you've changed out what the color filters are that are built into the camera. So like I sitting out in the front yard the other night, I could go from green to yellow to reds to blues. I can change all that stuff out. And those green shades are changing. Those brown shades are changing. But now you've got somebody like when I talk to Matt, because he spends more time on, doing video production stuff, going to a negative, there's a lot of movement in the background that you may miss just because the cameras are picking up certain shades. So we're looking at some of those other camera filters to see if there's some other definitions of light that are out there. And I am not an optic specialist. I'm not a color specialist. It's what can we all offer each other? That's what we look at. Like I said, Matt's the last 2 weeks that he's been out in his area, they've been doing that negative thing. And it's kind of cool because he can superimpose and you can see the definition. Like everybody that sends you the good old red circle, I always say, reverse the color. And you'll see some stuff. And that's stuff I picked up from Coles, years ago. He's like, hey, did you look at this? And hey, I have everything now. I do a reverse. I even do a reverse on my own stuff going, hey, did I miss something?
Mm-hmm.
So those are a couple of the little innovative projects that we've got going. We got a couple others that are tucked in the back of the head that are going to be, popping soon with some other folks. It's the way to go. So
I'm curious, going back, because I forgot to ask this before. When you're finding these hair samples, right, and you've come across these anomalous ones where there's no medulla, they don't match any normal hairs that you know of. Are you finding clear hair?
So some of it will have some clear stuff. So I have not had my hands directly on what Doug has offered. I'll just put that out there right now. Some of the stuff that we have, and like I said, I've even got some porcupine. I've taken stuff from the house, but a lot of it, yeah, it lacks a medulla. And that's an interesting look at things. Even if you look at like the polar bear and stuff, how light transmits. Occasionally I wear an earbud that has a clear tube to it. And if that just catches my collar just right, you'll pick up the black shades from stuff. It's really, it is an interesting thing. I mean, the biggest thing, like I said, when you do find those things, and that's a huge thing with me with the collection, is get that tape measure the location, photograph the whole location. One of the apps I use is actually a 360 photo app where I'm actually taking a picture of the whole area so I can go back and re-look at it. Like if you're doing a walkthrough on a house, basically on a real estate site, and you got that whole VR 360 look. So if I find a print or find some hair, I'll scan that area just to make sure we're getting some of that other data. But the big thing is how you're collecting it, what you're storing it in. You want to store it in paper. Like I said, that's when I talked about the envelopes earlier. There's two styles of envelopes that I carry. I carry a small coin envelope,
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that green screen and I are not going to get along today. But I will put the same labels that I use on my big envelopes. I'll put on these, put everything inside. That way I have that data. And if it's a big pile, it's going in a brown paper bag with one of those labels. Like I said, now we've got somebody like NC State University. Got to make sure I got that right school down. Doing the study. And you know
That's
what?
amazing.
If you're out there, this is the most important thing.
Mm.
Document everything. Write it down. You know, if I can go back to when I look at things or when I started and all this stuff, you know, yeah, I started with cheap cameras, you know, the little Kodak. This was, you know, prior to the GoPro. You know, it's great, fits in a jacket pocket, and you know, and then I upgraded, and I talked about this recently on dropping my stuff here. Was this little bad Vivitar? Oh, it's horrible, low light. But you know, I've got audio, but
Yeah.
I've got nothing to, you know, definitive on that. So, but now I got to go back. But the nice thing is, I take pictures a lot of times and stamp those with my cell phone, so at least I can go back to those dates and kind of look at things. But I really should have started a paper notebook day one. I tried it a couple of times and why am I doing this? Because I put everything on audio. Well, then when you build hours and hours of audio files and have, I don't know what I've got over there, 4, you know, removable drives, you know, unless you have some sort of data collection thing, and that's another big thing of mine is getting in and using like an Excel spreadsheet or an Access. Access is awesome. There's some other, we got some cuter folks that you're friends with that might help out with databases, but a database software where you can just go in like Word and just enter everything in and just fills out the Excel spreadsheet so you can search like, hey, at this time of night, what's there? You know, there's a lot of things that folks don't think about. You know, the weather conditions, the moon phases.
That's going to say.
Yeah. I mean, I got blessed. Like I said, I got in with guys that were the original folks that were doing the original message boards, those Nestor guys. When they set up a command center, there's a guy back with a notebook, with a weather station, with a compass, with a radio, and a pen and paper. And I heard such and such at this. We smelled this. What compass heading? How far are you from camp? It's getting documented. This is the moon phase. This is the temperature. And they're constantly getting that weather update. It's just so important to have that stuff down. I mean, especially us in the Northeast now with the burning stuff in Canada. You walk outside and you're like, why is there 4 fires somewhere? No, fire is Canada. It's not even here. And I mean, that's something you can see on Google Maps now is to really see where those fires are at.
Yeah.
Gloves. Make sure you go. The basic thing, guys, if you're taking a first aid kit, you have everything for evidence collection in your first aid kit minus an envelope. You got your gloves, you got your sterile tweezers, you know, you got a face mask. So you got the alcohol.
Yeah, you got everything you need for evidence collection for sure. Yep. Real quick, Tina, thank you so much for that. I appreciate the super sticker. Yeah, it's really amazing stuff. I just, you know, like I pack light too when I go. I don't like to carry a 50-pound bag on my back. Number one, I'm by myself. I don't have anyone with me. I don't want anything that's going to weigh me down any more than I have to be. But it's not like I carry a cloth tape measure. People would make fun of me when they would see this little sewing tape measure, right? Because, you know, most people carry a big old DeWalt 5-pound giant tape measure. And I'm like, why don't I need to carry that? That thing weighs 5 pounds. And plus that cloth tape you can move it so much better.
Yep.
You know, the other one's so stiff. I can't, you know, if I need to wrap it around something or whatever, I can't do that. But
it's quiet. And like I said, a lot of times, like I said, if I'm not using the rope, I'll put the rings on one of these bad boys and it gives me a weight to throw it up in a tree or put it on a branch. I can walk away and take a photograph. You know, I try to make sure I'm out there with somebody. Just lately, I keep bouncing into bears. It's kind of better to have somebody that runs a little slower than you sometimes or something. But you know, it's so important to have that data collection. And these are quiet. And again, you're not making all that noise. Or every time you get the good tape measures, like you said, DeWalt one, you lock it and then it comes back and then you're fighting and then you're putting it in the middle. Yeah. So,
I've learned so much recently about like logging data. I don't consider myself a researcher. I don't like using that term for myself because I feel like I haven't earned that term yet. I'm still very new to this, right? But I've learned a lot from guys like yourself over the last 6 or 8 months. You, Joe, Mike Lucci, Alexander Pedikov, like these guys who've all brought stuff to the table. Alex was the first person to show me one of these 3D apps about taking pictures in 3D, and I was like blown away. I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. I mean, the detail in that picture now, and what was really kind of a so-so photograph of a possible footprint. Now there's so much detail to it. So I have that app on my phone, and I've used it with these prints that I've gotten, and what a world of difference it's been. I mean, then some of these prints were very clear to begin with, but with that app, it's insane. My notes on my phone, that notes app that I have on my iPhone, has filled up so fast because I'm logging the weather after, like what the weather was like before, right before the sighting or the activity. What was the weather when the footprints were found? What the month, the day, all these things, and it fills up so fast. But you may not know it now. You go back in a year or two, and that's when you might start to find correlations between things and patterns arising. And that's why this stuff is so important to do. Yeah, it's monotonous and it's time consuming, but it's super important.
You were so right on that. I mean, like I said, going back to times and sounds and stuff like that. And, like I said, this tree is up or this Land Rover was up for me for a reason. Going down this trail, I heard, something that sounded like a bulldozer, that front end loader hitting the ground or, pounding down, and I'm trying to go back and find that audio because now I want to reach out to like Martin Groves, that's friends with Joe and Jesse, and say, okay, what did you hear in, LBL? Was it similar to this? Or other folks have said, hey, I'm hearing a loud mechanical noise. And again, I know it's there. I know it's tucked back in there. And it's having some of that old data to come back to. Even some of the colors, the scents, the bird noises, and again, it shows migrations on the birds. So if the birds are migrating, do you have those sounds again, the owls or some of the other things that are out there? So that data collection is so important,
super important, guys. Real quick, I see your questions. I'm going to get to them probably towards the end of the show. If you can do me a huge favor, put them in all caps. If you're not, it's easier for me just to see them. I've caught all of them so far, but it makes it easier for me to see if they're in all caps, and we'll have Mike answer some of those towards the end of the show. Yeah, it is super important. My buddy Mike Lucci from CARC, who just the guy's, he's such a brilliant kid, man. His brain works in such a different way, probably much like yours. It doesn't stop working. I've never seen a guy who can take data points and evidence and almost instantaneously he starts organizing it in his mind in a way that like he can pick up so fast on like these even small patterns that arise. We were having a conversation once in a group chat, and he said we were supposed to go on a camping trip up to Vermont to investigate this area that was having sightings, and there was like 6 of us going, and it was supposed to rain. So we were like, oh man, should we go? Should we wait? Mike is like, 82% of Sasquatch sightings in this area have been after rainstorms. And I'm like, where the hell did he get that information from? But he's doing these studies on his own. I mean, it's just amazing when you put this stuff to what its use really is, and you have the right minds to work on it. My mind don't work like that. I can log it, but I look at it afterwards and I just go, yeah, this is too much. I need somebody like you or Mike to go through and look at it and go, okay, there's something going on here.
Kyle, I'm a networker, so I'm an idea guy. I come up with something, but then I go look for the folks that can help me out.
Mm.
So, like I said, the UV thing, I reached out to Doug. I had him on my show, and I'm like, hey,
That guy's so brilliant.
Hey, let's try this. And it took us a couple months to come back to it. The Pantone thing, like I said, I may have come up with the colored thing, but coming up with the actual industrial numbers and stuff, that's the networking, having somebody that's out there, having a musician that understands tone and frequency, it's there, or having a naturalist in your group. I mean, it's the connections we have, that's why I love going out. You mentioned Alexander. I mean, I love going out with him into the woods, because we just go out and sometimes we forget we're actually out there in the woods doing what we're doing because we're chit-chatting the entire way.
He's awesome.
It's crazy. And Joe, here's another one. He went through, hey, everybody's whining about, infrasound. He goes and gets himself a great instrument, not something that somebody said, again, I do paranormal investigations. I see all this equipment. Half the people can't explain what the thing does. Right. Yeah, it flashes lights. Well, how does it flash lights? What is it picking up on? I know I'm going to get some electronic equipment, some circuit testers or something like that, and might try that. But I know this, if I touch it to a power outlet, it's going to give me, whatever. And I'm not an electrician. I'm going to run completely away from electrical. I'll put that out there. But if you're going to grab equipment, I mean, know how it works. And if you can explain that to us, and even in Joe's case, now with that, it's a seismograph. I mean, are you getting other stuff? Are you getting underground stuff going on, or it's just there? It's picking out the equipment. It's just so important to grab somebody that knows a little bit about something more than us,
For sure. And the equipment thing too, like, there can be and sometimes I think people do it on purpose, some people, and then other people just don't understand. But like I've seen it often with like the tri-field meters. Yep. People will be using it and they'll have it on the wrong setting, and then they'll freak out and they'll go, look, it's going crazy. It's going crazy. Well, it's going crazy because you've got it a foot from your phone.
Yep.
It's picking up your phone, and people start thinking like, oh man, this is real evidence. Well, no, because it's tainted evidence, because they're not using it the right way, and they've got it close to a phone that's giving off all kind of magnetic, readings. So yeah, it's very important to understand how it's used, and what it's used for and how it works.
But then I have a medium as a partner that I walk into things, and
that's a crazy tool.
It is, because like it'll be out soon. I think some of the video from last weekend, we worked with another channel, and we had someone that lived in the house, and the validation, was just like, I'm like filming the witness, and I'm filming her at the same time, and I'm watching this woman cry as Christy's mouth opens, and you're like, okay, but we've been on backwoods, and she's like, okay, you're going to go, half mile down the road on the right, you're going to have this dirt street, and the first house on the left is going to be white, and everything is turned off on tracking on the phone, and describe the area, and you're like,
yeah,
no, and you get there and you're like, it's right there, and you're just like, oh,
that's amazing,
and you're like, okay, so got to take the woo thing. You can't sometimes either, but again, spending time in the zoo as a kid and listening to those big primates scream, and then you hear those things in the woods, and you're like, okay. And I have heard a couple of screams in the woods that I can't explain.
Yeah, I caught some screams recently on the recorder that I left out at that property that I can't. I just got no explanation for them, and everybody that I played them for is saying the same thing. They don't. Doesn't sound like any animal that I've ever heard. I know I'm an animal guy. Like, prior to any of this, I am an animal guy. I love animals so much that in my spare time, I spent so much time watching every movie, show, documentary on animals. And then when I was a kid and growing up, if I could catch an animal or help an animal, rescue an animal. That was me. And I know this area. I've been in the woods, since I was a kid. These are nothing like I've ever heard in this area. Now, this is nothing like I would imagine I'd hear anywhere in the United States, period. They're just very, very strange. They're so loud. You can tell they're off in the distance. They're so loud. And it sounds to me, it sounds primate. It's this primate like scream. It's crazy.
Well, interesting, gang. I was on another show last week. We were talking about Florida and talking about swamp apes. And one of the guys brought up, like the pirate trade back in the day, at least for Florida, and even still some of the drug trade, back in the 80s. How many of those guys brought exotics from somewhere else in the world and then realized that it was cool to have, but we don't want it anymore. And, or the changes in the law, especially in the Northeast, with keeping some of the, the exotic animals. Well, what do you do? It's illegal. What are you going to do with it? And how many of those things get released, out into nature? Especially, with us, I can go across the border. I can get a wolf hybrid, but it's illegal in New York State. But I think they're still legal in, in New Hampshire and Connecticut. I know about 15 years ago, you could go across the border and get them. Well, what happens? You're taking that 5% Malamute or whatever. That's the rest is all Timby and whatever. That's a big dog, quote unquote big dog, because it's got 5% Malamute. That's a wolf. That's a crazy thing. And, we see with Florida how many different exotics are out there, or even the birds that are escaped. I know in a park close to me, there's a monk parrot population, which is Quaker parrots. You go to the pet store to get them. They're a common parrot. They got a pretty good vocalization. I've got one in the other room, but there's a wild colony here in the Northeast. It's kind of crazy,
That is crazy. I didn't know that.
Hey, Joe.
Man, it's true. You don't know because look, all you have to do is look at the Burmese python problem in Florida right now, and that's all you need to know. I mean, these things were brought over. They're not indigenous to this to Florida, to the United States, and now it's a major problem down there. So you're right. Who knows what was released and what's been brought here, because wolf hybrids are legal in this state. I know that for a fact. I know people who have them, and it's, unfortunately, it's like you're left in that space where you can't. That's when I say you can't be married to the subject. You can't have an emotional connection to it, because if you do, then I think your vision gets clouded, and you have to be as pragmatic and objective about this as absolutely possible. Leave all your feelings at the door and look at this strictly from a objective, scientific standpoint. And so, as much as I may want it to be a Sasquatch vocalization, there's no way for me to tell that for sure. No. Unless somebody else can show me one that's, for 100% certain a Sasquatch vocalization, and say, okay, this matches with that. I mean, even the Sierra sounds can't be 100% because no one saw what made them. There was no.
And there's a whole other spin on things. I've sat and been on panels with Ron, and
another wonderful guy, just a great guy.
And you talk to him. Well, what was that recorded on? I mean, those recorded on old tapes, not digital recorders. These digital recorders now are, designed to filter everything out besides, your human voice or cicadas for some reason, but Ron and I have talked about that a couple of times. In fact, I bought a cheap tape recorder. It ran on Maxell tapes, kind of like you're doing the old mixtapes from the, the 80s and stuff like that. And I gave that to Alexander Petikoff and Eli, and they were out doing something and watching Eli go, what is this? It was like, handing somebody an 8-track or something like that. Like, and Paul Bartholomew's handing him stacks of tapes. Like, what do we do with these? These go into this, and it plays. I mean, we got past the seat, but it's funny. We talk about it a lot, using some of that older technology, going back to the old 35 millimeter cameras, the old video, the old film cameras, because you're not worried about so much with battery. You can still wind them up. You can use that tape is not going all the time. Yeah, that, real and real. There's guys still using it. I got to buy another tape recorder. Like I said, I gave it to those guys because they were going to Alaska. I said, here, take this with you,
I just had this conversation not too long ago on the show about this, like, the older technology possibly being more valuable than we know, for those reasons, and then possibly other reasons. One of the things that you hear constantly, and again, it's just an anecdote because we don't have any real evidence to back it up, but you hear it over and over and over, is people put trail cams up. These things stay away. People who have regular activity, they put trail cams up and the activity stops. They don't go near trail cams. They don't like cameras. That's something about the camera, the IR, the whatever it is. So maybe if you can eliminate that.
Let's see if it'll do it with this one. No, I got my finger off it. So with some of the night vision cameras, it's not going to do it with this one, but with an IR setup, your droids will eliminate an IR light out of the top while they're sitting there, so you can touch the screens and bring them up. People don't realize that. The same thing with going to a hotel room and make sure nobody's got a camera. Take your night vision, take your IR, look at that illuminator, take your cell phone. You'll see it. That's kind of where the UV study came from. There's a lot of lights that work in different frequencies. Even some of your remotes work off of IR. If something can, pick up things in that IR frequency, there's stuff still going out there.
So you're telling me if I have an Android phone and I go into a hotel room and I want to search for a hidden camera,
put it on video mode.
Huh?
Yeah. You got a night vision camera? You got a security camera at home?
No, I don't. I'm just saying, if I did,
yeah.
How do I search?
If the IRs were on, your camera will pick up that IR like a big bright spot.
Big bright spot.
Yeah. It'd be like, kind of,
Interesting. I mean, I kind of understand that. I kind of knew that, but it's still never thought about it that way. Going into a hotel room to look if they're being freaky or whatever.
I mean, you just never know. I mean, I never thought about it. I don't think there's batteries in this one. I've got 2 trail cameras right at my side here. I don't think anybody's ever done this.
Real quick, the hominin X inquiry. It's funny. Lots of people have claimed to have personally heard sounds like the Sierra sounds in the woods. And in almost 60 years of life, I've only ever heard those sounds on those tapes.
Yep.
I've never heard chatter like that. Not ever. No. Not once. Nothing like that. I've heard whoops and I've heard screams, but nothing like what Ron and those guys caught. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's an old trail camera.
Mm-hmm.
You're still getting some sort of flash as it's taking photos, and it's not flashing. That's just the setup. So that's an old wild game camera. So that one will turn off. So yeah, I mean, Joe's great. I'm actually doing a presentation with Joe. Joe actually took me out to his location where he had his encounter. And again, how we document it. And it's another thing that, we talk about, looking at those colors and stuff like that. But again, like I said, if you're running something like Merlin or you're running bird.net, you get a graph that's going live and you can kind of watch those sounds. And I even had somebody send me some audio the other day and they're like, but they took it from the bird app. So we go into Merlin, okay, we're going to kill it again. And I don't know how you're doing for time. I'm one of those guys that can talk for hours on end.
No, it's okay. I usually go about 90 minutes. That's usually what I keep it at.
So with Merlin, you have your sound ID and you can pick. But if we start, there we go. Trying to find the right one. You can do a photo, but you can start a sound ID. And when it starts a sound ID, let me see if I can kill one of these lights and see if that's better. So you actually get the audio. And if the bird pops up, let me pull a recording that already has one on here. Let's go to my sound recordings. So if they start popping up and I start playing them on this particular app, there'll be a little blue light that pops up in the corner.
Oh, that's amazing.
When we get there, and it will actually highlight. So this has already been pre-recorded. So let me kind of at least go to the Song Sparrow so we can see. We can look at the audio for that song Sparrow right there. And it'll go through. So when it does identify, it puts it, but it'll give me what.
Oh, look at that.
So
oh, that's awesome.
But you see how I get that setup.
Yeah.
So now I can take that same audio, put it in Audacity, and I can come over to I Hunt Calls, which is another little app that's out here, and I can go down and say, okay, I want to, let's turn some volume on here. You know, let's pick an owl for, say, or pick a pheasant. Pheasant's always an interesting one, you know? Or if we go to, this is always a good one that people think is Bigfoot.
Gator.
Yep.
Gator.
That's just it. Or what's that?
Is that a cougar?
Nope. That is a buffalo or a bison.
Oh, damn.
So having something like that and being able to pull into your different audio stuff to take a look at it. Here's another good one that'll pop up. I mean, so again, knowing where those things are, I got a great Angus bull that somebody sent me the other day that really just goes out there, but knowing those big things, knowing the different hoots and chitters and everything else like that,
it's so valuable.
Simply your owls and, and again, where you are and having something like Cornell University, which is near us, where you're going to get things. I mean, pigs are another thing. Wild boar grunts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, there are enough wild boar around. And wild boar, again, if we go back to those color phases, that's those grays, those browns, those blacks. And people have, again, gone out, bought a whole bunch of Russian wild boar, and they've released them, or even feral pigs. I mean, if you're into stuff, go look. I think there's actually an old Monster Quest episode where they talk about how long it takes. It's like 6 months for a pig to go completely feral, like grow tusks and the whole shebang. And they're there. And I mean that was the last thing I actually hunted was wild boar. But finding one of those in the woods is just, and
if you're out in the woods and you hear that noise and you're not educated to it, I mean, and you're out looking for Sasquatch, you may think that's, I mean, it's a scary sound.
Yep.
It's a scary sound.
The porcupines. I mean, how many times are we out with somebody and they're like, "Oh my God, what's that going through?" You talk to hunters, I thought I had the biggest buck of my life coming in. It's a squirrel. Or you can see it plain as day when we're in nice one, Bernie. When we were filming The Journey, with Small Town Monsters, and like, oh, we can hear it come through the woods. And I'm like, I grabbed the thermal, and it was my smaller one at the time. And I'm like, dude, that's wood rats. I mean, it's not there. Or I cover pretty much from New York to Florida. I've been in and out of the different areas, and armadillos. I mean, man, you really want to talk about something loud is an armadillo. I mean, they don't care. They're just going through the woods. you know.
Yeah.
But you get a big bear or a moose, you're not hearing them coming through the woods, you know.
They move different, man. They move quiet for a reason.
We were filming, you know, with one of those Beyond the Trails with Alexander, and he and I were both running thermals, and Coles and Luca, Alex's brother, had night vision, and they're like, they didn't see the bear that was coming up on us. You know, they're like, oh, even the night vision, we're not. I'm like, and there's a thing, folks, save for your equipment. If there's anything I've learned, going to buy the cheapest possible thing just so you have it will come back to haunt you. I mean, yes, you can get away with it with an inexpensive UV lights or one of the $40 recorders that have an audio, or like I said, the cheaper tape measures. But when you're looking at cameras and thermals and drones, save your pennies. So you're not buying things twice. That's a big thing. I mean, this is my second of the big boys, and God bless the folks at ATN. I actually even got to go out with my sales rep and take a look at things. I mean, you can start, you know, if your friend, you can look for old surplus stuff. It will work. I mean, I've got a Generation 1 surplus night vision, old Russian night vision, that sometimes the clarity is much better than these digital ones that you're buying, you know, online for 100 and whatever. But you can find an old Army Navy store and get one of these old Gen 1 night visions. They weigh a ton, but you know, and you can't shine them at anything, because if you put them towards a campfire or towards somebody with a flashlight, you'll burn them out. But I absolutely, yeah, that's right. Buy cheap, buy thrice. You know, and God knows. You know, it's if somebody asks you know, like, what do you do? Make sure you're spending some money on some stuff, so you know it's gonna be there for you in the long run.
Yeah, it does make a difference. I mean, you know, I think it was Joe I was talking to recently. Joe, if it was you, let me know. But I believe he said he'd spoken to somebody, or he knew somebody who spoke to somebody who was part of like the military at one point and now works.
Chris from Squatch Survival Gear.
Is that who it is?
Awesome backpacks, awesome dude. He has had his sighting. I actually had him on. He had a sighting with military grade thermal camera. There, we talk about people we talked about every day. Chris and I probably every day talk.
Yeah.
His packs are made here in the U.S. Eventually, he's going to get her. I've been trying to get him to make me a sling bag for forever, but because that's what I like. I'm not a big backpack guy. But
yeah, I'm a sling bag guy too. I like the sling bag.
Everybody that gets their hands on them. I have a T&E backpack of his for the guys at work that we're testing out, and the construction is just absolutely awesome. And again, they're made. Some of the construction is actually up by you in the Northeast, and then he's out of San Antonio. But yeah, right there, Bigfoot, New York Todd, Rock Ape backpacks. Yeah, they're awesome. I mean, he's got a little mini. They're all little cryptids, which is really cool. So he's got like a mini Hui and the Mothman and stuff, but they're durable packs, and they got like Velcro, so you can put like little pouches and pods and stuff like that. And even Lauren and I got talking about that. It just, you go down, that's a whole nother day talking to him about having a good pack and having something that's not going to fall apart on you. Again, you can go get some stuff, you know, but you know, and then you don't have to go super, super, super expensive. You know, if all the celebrity stars or whatever are endorsing it, but go see who's actually using it in the field. I mean, that's
right.
That's
that's the important part, right? Because the celebrities probably aren't out there in the field using these things and beating them up every day, or you know, every weekend or whatever it is. But Joe and Jesse love their chest packs.
Yeah.
That's their thing. They love that chest pack. I've been meaning to get one too, and I haven't. I bought a new pack, and like similar to what you're talking about. It's got a lot of Velcro on it. It's got detachable straps with Velcro, and you know they click together.
Yep.
So it's got a bunch of those. You can actually take the side packs off, the little pockets on the sides. They're about this big. And then you can either you can either strap them on the belt together and wear them as like a fanny pack or on your sides. and there's a pack on the front that's a fanny pack. Looks like a fanny pack. It's a little bigger, and same thing. You can take that off, strap it around your waist, or you can wear it over your shoulder. And so you can take this thing apart into pieces if you don't want to carry the whole pack. It's an amazing bag. I think I paid like $65 for it too on Amazon one day. It was on sale, and but yeah, that's probably one of the best investments that I've made recently was that thing.
Yeah, I have a chest harness that I wear that has basically, it's the old swivel, like cell phone swivel, and
Yeah.
there's one on the back of this. So it has a little swivel, so it locks right down in, so my hands are free.
Yeah.
That way, if I need flashlights or whatever, but I have my thermal or like my Nikon, they're there. So I always have a camera at that chest point. It's probably why I don't carry, one of those pistol chest rigs. So
Hill People gear. That's the
Yep.
chest. That's the bag. Bernie says he stays away from the Kim Kardashian thermal cameras.
Awesome.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, man, it's all just amazing stuff that you're doing, Mike. Really. I wasn't aware of a lot of this stuff. I knew when Joe said it to me, like, Mike said, innovative guys, one of the most innovative guys in the field. I knew that, you had to be doing some stuff that was pretty cool because Joe and Jesse are pretty smart cookies. I think that they're trying a lot of stuff that other people aren't. They're out there constantly, in crazy areas doing crazy stuff. And, they weren't lying. This stuff is really amazing. Stuff that I wouldn't thought of. I would have never thought of, taking paint samples to help compare colors of what people are seeing. And that UV light, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense. I mean, law enforcement, you guys use this in investigations anyway, right?
Yes.
I mean,
but now we took it to a different level by putting it through a filter. But here's another thing. You're in the Southwest. Okay. We want to go, and everybody wants to tour and do things. So, I joke about this. I joked about it the other night. I go down to Florida every year.
I'm sorry.
Nope. That's awesome.
Salty always. Every single show gets a laugh out of me every time. It's just ridiculous.
But Kyle, that's why we do this. Our chats are our lifeline, our blood and stuff like that.
Amazing, yeah.
But the thing is, like I said, I go from here and I go down to Florida. I'm not used to pygmy rattlesnakes, we've got big rattlesnakes down here, but I remember getting off a kayak with a buddy from Naked and Afraid, and he's like, "Hey, you got to worry about the pygmy rattlesnakes." Well, you also got to worry about what kind of bugs. If you're working, you go down and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to get out with somebody in Texas or Arizona or the Four Corners." Well, you've got scorpions, you got other stuff that's going to eat you alive, or kill you. Having that UV light, it's going to glow. If you're working the seashore, you're going to be able to find all this other stuff. You're looking for other food sources and everything else. It's amazing to pick that kind of thing. Or look at the different mosses on the trees. Using that UV light is there. And that's why I try to use so many different colors. Or you're going to notice, you think something's been down the trail ahead of you. You can see where some of those leaves have been turned over by using a different color, especially at night, instead of just straight out white light.
Right. I think these were meant to go together. He's expecting the first joint research between you two to have the entire phenomenon wrapped up inside of 48 hours.
Yeah, we're going to bring Max and Matt with us. Max to cook and Matt to film it. We got something. Hopefully, we're going to be able to get us all together soon. So
that would be amazing. I hope you guys do get together. I think that would be something really, really special to see all you guys doing that. I mean, that's another thing he was telling me about your buddy Matt and just how much of a gangster he is with that camera. I mean,
again, find folks that know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge fan of GoPros. They die all the time, and your batteries are never there, and you can never get that steady shot. Well, being a photojournalist, he knows what lenses to put on. He's got a stabilizer lens, like using a gimbal. Excuse me, that's an important thing. If you watch my show, we said gimbal so much it's becoming drinking thing. But having that stabilization, literally putting the GoPro on the front of the vehicle, so even if you're using a dash cam, you're getting that bounce, but using that can't think of the name of the lens for the GoPro, keeps that steady line on, so you're not getting that bounce. Or if he's got it mounted on his helmet, he's also mounted his microphones on top of his head, which I love it. If you see it, it looks like Mickey Mouse with these two things on top of his head. I couldn't stop laughing, and it took us like 20 minutes to film one day. But having that stuff up there, you're not getting the breathing, you're not getting the footsteps. Yeah, I gotta get over to Mass and Connecticut and bounce over that side of the state. We'll get you out, Kyle. Whitehall, September.
Yeah.
Meet us. There'll be a bunch of us up there. Alexander will be there. Steve will be there. We can hook you up with some folks. I think Joe, we can drag him along. Oh, he's back. Yeah, we are picking on you, Matt. But the first time I went out with him, he pulls out this camera with a 500 millimeter lens on it, on a gimbal. And, I thought I was on an episode of National Geographic, because it's just slow and steady. And he's got that zoom. And it's just, you're not, oh, what is it? The tree? No, was it the wind from the tree, or is it you? No, that's a lock on. And he's just rocking that thing. And then he pulls it into the Adobe Premiere, and now he's got another digital zoom on there where he's pulling that thing out. And I got home and I bought a gimbal for my phone for it's there. You're going to be that way. I got one for my phone for when I'm filming my shows and we're doing live. And then I went out and bought the Lumix camera. I got the baby brother for it, but it's just amazing to be able to run a zoom lens, in 4K, and not just the GoPro or not your cell phone. I mean, not that these cell phones don't have super zooms on them. And again, take a tablet, have all these apps, have it on a separate phone, not your communication device. So when it dies, is so important. I mean, I even have a radio with a generator in the back so I can plug it in. So,
I've talked about this quite often too, is, cell phones are great. They have great cameras for a phone,
right?
But it's not a great camera.
No.
Right. In the overall scheme of things, it's amazing that they can put cameras like that in a phone. But when you're talking about nature photography, which is what we're doing, it's not getting the job done. The second you're zooming in, you're losing so much definition. I mean, it's pixelated, it's blurry, it's just not doing the job. But you know what? I got a camera. Probably the beginning of this year. It's the DJI Pocket Osmo 2.
Yep.
And that thing is incredible for what it is, for not being a giant camera with a telephoto lens, for being a tiny camera on a handheld gimbal. I mean, if I had a drink, I'd drink it with you.
I know. Wow. Yeah.
It's amazing. It really, the footage that I get with that thing is incredible. The clarity is nuts. The zoom isn't, it's nothing amazing. It's still better than my cell phone though, but that little thing works. It's great.
Larson, you're not stealing my ideas. He's my PR. So when we talk about like the 3D scanning apps or the bird apps, Matt's the one that I show it to him, and then he puts it out on his channel, because I generally don't put much Bigfoot stuff out on my channel, actually. It's, I would rather share with folks like you that, in your audiences, my folks will see me, and I'll kind of throw a Tactical Tuesday in, or a Sunday. But yeah, those lenses on it, I tried to stay away from DJI, and then I ended up, I have a DJI gimbal, and the brand new drone, according to my Amazon and my security camera, just showed up outside the door. So I have the brand new.
Oh, nice.
I have the brand new one out there. But we've got a couple of DJI thermals, the big monster drones at work that I have to, figure out how to use a little bit more. But again, that's why I spend so much time on thermal, is get my eye on. So
yeah, sure. So let's take the last little bit of this to go some of these questions from the chat that I haven't gotten to yet. I really appreciate this, Mike. This has been
no
really
problem.
It's such an amazing show. But let's go back and get some of these questions here that I wasn't able to get to. So Bigfoot New York Todd, does your partner get any kind of psychic readings or feelings from Bigfoot?
She does not get psychic readings from Bigfoot or something like that. However, we've been out at locations and she said, at this area at this time, there may have been X, Y, and Z. And then if we go back and research it, we'll find like an old farm. So we can kind of go back and to maybe look for old apple orchards or old structure. So it gives us a point to, bounce off for a nest or something like that. She's put us on a couple of places that had some murder scenes in the woods. Like, you're probably going to come across something not good. And that did happen one day. And that was the creepiest thing, turning down this road. And like, this is a perfect road to set up on. And you're like, yeah, there was a body dump here. Yeah, that's, and you feel horrible for the family at that point. And it's like, okay, that's the end of Bigfooting for the day. But yeah, she usually picks up on that kind of stuff, but not the quote mind speak and everything else like that goes along with Bigfoot.
Yeah. Man, I'd love to talk to her. I've been trying to get a psychic medium to come on the show for quite a while. And I've either come across nothing but kooks who were just absolute wackos, or people who were just like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. But that's amazing stuff to me, because I personally have had experience with legitimate psychic medium, with one who was just really incredible, like you talked about, where there was absolutely no way for this person to know anything about my life. And she was, from the moment we spoke, she was telling me things that there is no way she could have known.
Yep.
Things about me and my life when I was younger, my grandmother who has passed away, like just crazy stuff. I don't know how anyone lives with that ability. I really don't. To like you said, when she sees something like, okay, there was a body dumped here, like, ooh.
So Matt's got a comment down there, Central Florida Bigfoot. And as you can see, he says, or she'll say there was a heart somewhere in that area and there'll be a heart-shaped lake. So
yeah.
Matt's been with me where we've gotten like, a FaceTime, like, hey, you guys need to look to the right. This is what you're going to find. This is what's here. And you're like, I can't.
It's crazy. I get that though. So there's like, it may not be a heart, right? A body part, but there's still
a heart. Yeah.
A heart.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to read between the lines a little bit, but.
And it's not like, oh, it's the paragolia. Like you got to do the red. No, it'll be punk. And you're like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Joe, yes, you are absolutely amazing. You should take full credit for all of this. Right now I'm giving you a high five through the computer. I know he's being tongue in cheek, but he is amazing. They both are. Him and Jesse are both amazing.
Hey, they're the reason that we're running Psionics night vision cameras.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about tech, because they're tech heavy, and whenever I like have questions about it, he's helped me with the audio thing, gave me the blueprints on how to build a long-term audio recorder, to leave out for like a month at a time, which is going to be a pretty valuable asset. Let me see. Let me get back to these questions real quick. Let me see. New York Todd again. How would you collect a DNA sample from a potential scat? Unfortunately, I don't walk around with a stool test kit. Q-tip smear into a coin envelope, then into another envelope? ?
You could do that, but I would scatter. I would probably plastic bag that, and probably, there's actually, we did a little blurb on it with Alexander Petikoff's Beyond the Trail of, it's the New York episode. If you go to my channel or you go to Small Town, but I know on mine it's like right at the top. We found some scat. We know it was bear scat. We weren't going, and there's a whole tongue-in-cheek thing that kind of goes with it, with me tasting it. Anyway, but there are some folks out there. I want to say it's Shelly that has a DNA collection kit that's out there, and it is. Again, you can get the test tubes, almost like using the COVID swab test kits. Basically, is what they are. Make sure you got the glove on. Make sure you got your mask. And you want to be as wrapped up as best you can. But yeah, you can do that. We've done plastic bags, goes in the freezer, it's there. But yeah, you do the sterile Q-tip swab, the gloves, and one of those sterile, tubes, the evidence tubes. So, and a lot of the stuff you can find on evidence or on Amazon. When I was working with Todd last week, we talked about, everybody seeing the handprints and what can I do for the handprints. Well, there's some good evidence kits, on Amazon that you can get at a decent price. And again, a lot of this stuff is already in your first aid kit. You can get the sterile tweezers now, and they come in a little plastic vial, and it goes in there and good to go. So,
yeah, I haven't come across any potential. Well, actually, we did that one time on a live. I found a pile of scat that was gigantic. I mean, I couldn't. I mean, it was. I know this is gross to talk about for some people, but this was on a live. I live stream everything. Like the only reason I don't from this property is because I can't. I have no signal out there. Everything else I've ever done, I've live streamed, and I came across a pile of scat in the state park that was the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was. I swear to God, Mike. If any human had ever tried to push this out of their rear end, they would have split themselves right up the middle. I mean, it was so big and wide and long. I'm sitting there. Look, I know what bear shit looks like, and I'm like, this doesn't look like bear shit. It certainly wasn't horse poop. I just had no idea what it was, but I wasn't in the business of looking for poop ever, so I didn't do any collecting of it except for getting it on film. But it was massive.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Ironically, there's an app. There's a poop identification app. I found and sent to a bunch of people. But I had somebody send me something a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, "Hey, I found this." I'm like, "All right, well, I'm not there on site, but put it through Google. Took the photo and put it through Google Lens." And we're like, nope, that's what this is. This is what you got on the prop. Okay, that's what you want to. But Google, there's a great place to start if you have signal. Is Google Lens for a lot of stuff, insects, birds, plants, and everything. Practice section.
Yeah. But you guys are on a roll tonight.
But you can technically send scat to the NC State, survey. Where they're doing things. So I'm going to see if I can find that link for you.
Okay. You find that link. Oh, God, I love this. Yeah, Salty, you watch that. He says, no way that came out of a normal person. It was just, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was so big. I mean, it was just gigantic. And it looked like human shit. Excuse my language, but it did. It looked like a human poo. It was shaped like it. It was massive. Massive. If it was a person, they had to have been backed up for a month, at least. It was terrible. Let me see. This is taking a turn. Oh, God.
All right, I gotta find that. I will.
I poop. Joe says it's called I poop.
Yeah. Well, I sent it to. Yeah, I've sent it to a couple of people. I got Darby's message here. I'll send it. What's our next question?
Our next question comes from my good friend Fresh. Does Mike record audio in FLAC or MPSWAV? Do you
I
understand?
couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are two file formats, but
Yeah.
whatever my Sony's putting down, so it's probably coming
Right.
out as an MP3 or an MP4, and
Yeah.
then whatever BirdNet is recording at.
Okay.
So look up, like I said, look up the Merlin app and look up the Merlin and Bird.net. They both have recording capabilities. So most of the time, I'm just running that recorder, and I don't do a lot with audio. If there's something that really piques my interest, then I'll pass it along to those guys up north. So.
All right. Bernie wants to know, have you experienced any of the battery drain phenomenon that so many people have reported with their tech?
I wouldn't call it battery drain. I would call it user error in my case. This last week, I was like, hey, I got it. We were doing a paranormal investigation till I realized that I left the camera on while we were going. Or grabbing the wrong set of batteries. I've done that twice. Or you get a hot battery that I've had a couple of times, especially like lithiums. If they get over hot, they'll die instantly. But I haven't had the it's going to drain. Now, have I seen the cell phones do or not cell phones, the mag lights do the light changes and stuff at different locations? Yeah. But again, then I'm usually running a paranormal investigator, running a medium at the same time that's saying, hey, we'll do a light session. And again, I can't explain that either, why those things are going down. But a direct correlation with a Bigfoot investigation, no. I also run a physics app on my phone that does some stuff. And it just, they kind of bouncing back and forth. But I've never had a direct drain.
Real quick. Hey, Josh. Hey, Bigfoot Lake buddy. How are you, man? Thank you for stopping by, buddy. Yeah, Josh, great dude. Him and his wife both have channels. That has to do with this stuff. He does a lot of personal sightings and encounters, and he reads them on his channel. And he's great at it. Real quick, Bigfoot Todd says might good idea to share how to collect a sebum sample from potential handprints. I believe what that greasy stuff is called, Doug, I think, was the person who coined that term, is Alba Vernix.
That's what Doug's using. Yeah, is the Alba Vernix.
That's what he's using, Alba Vernix. I had this on my car after leaving an area not too long ago. A giant handprint and what looked like forearm print. You could see pores, look like goosebumps, almost hair, and then that grease, like this weird waxy.
Yep.
It stayed there for like 2 weeks, even through rain, man.
And that's the kind of stuff. So what he's looking for is really to get that sterile Q-tip.
I took samples.
Take that swab, stick it in the fridge or the freezer, and then reach out. But that's part of the sample stuff. So if I just sent it to you on Facebook, but if you don't mind, I'll drop it in the comments.
Go for it.
So it's going to pop in mine or it's going to pop in yours. So I'm going to drop it here, and let me know if you get it on. Oh, it just went to my channel, so I'm going to throw it into our private chat.
It's on here too.
It is. Okay.
Yep. Perfect.
That's with amazing. This new StreamYard thing, I don't know where we're popping back and forth. So
that's amazing. That's great. Thank you. Yeah. So I took samples because I reached out to people, like you said, reach out to those who know. I reached out to the people I thought would know. I said, what do I do? And they said, take a Q-tip, swab that thing, just swab it, put that Q-tip in the bag, just take a few samples, just, take as many as you can and keep them. And so that's what I've done. But I'll gladly send them out to the college, man.
Yeah. And, and the question was, how do you take a print that's that big? And, now I'm thinking about it as I look over in the corners, go to the store and they've got that contact paper for the Cricut cutters.
Yeah.
For the transfer, you can use some of that. Or, you can go buy the good print stuff, from, an evidence collection company or something like that. But in a pinch, you can run down to, your local box store and pick up that stuff, or, the transfer sticker for, vinyl. That will take it. Not great sometimes, but at least it would give you something.
Something.
But I would definitely look at, the old packing tape works too. But when you're looking at something that big, and then you got to look and make sure you get the right stuff, because some of it may have a, what am I looking for? A fuzz on it. But you could also, you want to make sure you got something to put on there. You're going to need some dusting powder. So.
Dude, it was on my car, and a day later, it was full on CSI, like somebody dusted it because of the pollen. Like it just, I mean, you could see it before that, but the next day, it was like CSI came through and dusted it because the pollen just attached to it, man.
So, Kyle, now what else can you use in your arsenal that we already talked about when you're looking at these photos?
When I'm looking at
when you're looking at this evidence and want to take the photos, what else can you use? Pull that 3D scanning app out.
Oh, yeah.
If they're on a tinted window, or if you got something to back that up, put a backer back there.
Yeah. My mom said that. She was like, you need to put something behind it and take a picture. Take a picture. And I'm like, Mom, how does my mom know to do this?
Hey, you sit around watching CSI, you pick up some of these things, and some of it's TV magic and some of it's not.
She's going to kick me in my ass now for this afterwards. She's gonna, I told you so.
And again, that's why I'm using different color lights. Again, I'm not saying everything in the woods is Bigfoot, or it's not, but there's so much data collection. There's so much we learn. That's this topic, is learning so much about other things and learning about ourselves when we're out there. I guess that's a big thing,
Sure. Yeah. Well, listen, Mike, this has been, Joe's absolutely right. This has been a privilege to have you here and to listen to all of this amazing, amazing stuff that you shared with us. I know that I'm going to be a much better researcher just from this show alone. I'm going to try, as many of these techniques as I possibly can, because I just think this is amazing stuff. It really is. I mean, I've sat down and spoken with, a lot of people in the last year. People who in this community puts on a pedestal. And I can tell you right now that I haven't got anybody who are on those proverbial pedestals here. Maybe with the exception of Doug Hychek, who's just a brilliant friggin' genius. The guy's just so fucking smart. Excuse my language. But with the exception of Doug, those other people haven't brought this stuff to the table, man. You really are like, this is innovative stuff. And it's really exciting for me to see new stuff, to see people trying different things, and to bringing these different techniques into this field, because I complain about it a lot, but I'm not doing much about it. My mind doesn't work that way. But one of the complaints is, how do we get this? How do we make this better? How do we push this forward? And this is how, man. This is how.
I appreciate it. And like I said, there's not a lot of stuff on my channel because my numbers aren't there. They are for my Where's My Sage, but that's more and the whole purpose of Where's My Sage is getting you off the couch. It's getting you out and experiencing life. But when I get to talk to folks like yourself, and I appreciate tonight a lot, because I just touch a whole another group of folks that can go out and data collect. When I get on and talk to Joe and Jesse, and we're out places and they can spread the word of what we've seen, or like I said, I try to get to Florida with Matt and use the stuff in the field where I've got somebody that can run a camera while I'm trying to explain. I can't always explain what I'm doing. If I'm doing presentations, Joe that was in there earlier that I mentioned there, who keeps changing his name all over the place. What's he
Hominid Inquiry.
Yeah. we're doing a presentation in 2 weeks in New York, and I had the blessing of him taking me to the site of his location. But now I'm going to be able to sit with an audience, have him talk about what he is, and show this stuff like I just did for you, which you just allowed me to do. So now, again, if we got a kid or we got a family that might be interested in getting out there, there we go. Like I said, grab that $5 worth of or $2 worth of rope and just go. Just know what it's at. Do that thing. I'm just so. My thing was I was so sick of everybody. There he is, still here. Was so angry about the prince disappeared. The prince disappeared. Well, one, was it water or rain that pooled there? Was it an old print, or did somebody go ahead and do that? Look, use that stuff. It's there. It's the way it's out there. And yeah, Doug will just. I love talking to him. When he and I get on the phone, I'm on there for hours on end.
Dude,
we have to put a whole afternoon together for him. So we limit that to every other month.
Let me say this about Doug Hychek too. People who may think because if Doug is who he is, because he's done so many of these amazing things with his life, and he was the first person to film a giant octopus or squid in the ocean. I mean, that alone is such an incredible thing. That he's produced all these things and filmed all these things, and that you may think that he would be this guy who doesn't have time or no, the absolute opposite. Doug will give time to anybody who wants to learn and know more, and he is the most selfless guy in the world.
Yeah. Ron Moorhead.
Yes.
Those guys are awesome. And when you look at Doug's got like patents on polymers and other stuff. Get away from this whole TV thing. I mean, again, you're going to find different things. Find the folks that you're there. When you want to look at things, go find your horticulturist. When you want to look at the woods or sounds or something like that, somebody will help you on a lot of different things. That's fresh. That's awesome. I thank you for putting that out there. So
yeah, the people in the chat are asking for it. People are subbing to the channel, Mike. I hope we could get some more folks to see what you're doing and to help the channel grow and to go to the podcast and give you support, because man, you deserve it.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, you guys are the first ones to find out that I will be out at Monster Fest next June.
That's so awesome.
It'll be an evidence collection thing we're working on with those guys. At least that's what they asked me for. So
that's so awesome, man. Well, I think you're gonna have a good time. Those guys, they're great folks, man.
And Kyle, you got to get to Whitehall. I mean,
I do.
Get to Whitehall in September, the last weekend, and we'll hook you up with some folks out there that are in the Northeast and can get you out.
I've wanted to talk to Brian Gosling for a very long time.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, like Brian's sighting is one of those things that kind of set me down this path.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yep. I got to get out there. I definitely do. Well, anyway, thank you again so much. I really, really am grateful for this. This is a very, very exciting show. I had a great time. These are the things that get me excited again, right? Because you can get to a point where you go, I'm worn out. But then you talk to somebody who they spark it again. They light that fire again. It's like, man, now I want to go back out tomorrow. And you've definitely done that tonight, man. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, I'm hoping that we will be back this weekend with the Sideshow group. I'm hoping that Fresh and Ben will be around. If not, then maybe I'll go on or something on Friday. But if I can get all three of us together, that's what I'm going to do. And then watch for next week, next Wednesday. I think we have another show lined up. I'm hoping. Again, this all comes down to when the guests can do the show. I shoot for Wednesday. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. Maybe I'll just say screw it. If it's not Wednesday, it's not Wednesday, and we'll just do it whenever. But I'm hoping anyway. But thank you guys for being here so much. Like I said, I'll be back on Friday. If Ben and Fresh can't do it, then I'll do it by myself. But hopefully those two jokers will be there. I love you guys so much. You're the reason that I continue to do this. Your support, it blows me away. And the comedy, I'm telling you right now, I needed these laughs tonight more than you know. And you delivered. You guys rock. I'll see you on the next one. Till next time, take care. Good night.